We've now learned how to draw DCF connections in Visio, but there are still several options to explore. The first one that we're going to do is to make connections, which are already drawn on your Visio page, used by the DCF connection. To do so, we made the following example. We have our two elements and a line between the connections. In DataMiner, this currently looks like this. So it doesn't really care about these lines, it doesn't use them. It just draws them straight. To make them use it, we need to add the shape data options and add the value, connectivity lines, pipe, highlight path. If we apply this, we can then see it now utilizes the connections drawn. The second option that we're going to talk about is view connectivity. You can make connections between views. So the views in DataMiner have elements, and the elements can have connections between them. So if you have two views which have elements in them, and those elements and those views are connected, then you can also connect those views. To do that, we'll do the following. We've made a new page, and we're going to draw the shapes for our views. Location A, and our location B. To enable the view connectivity, we need to do on our connectivity shape, the options enable view connectivity. Without this, it wouldn't work. So we've now made our two view shapes and defined enable view connectivity. In DataMiner, we can now see that between location A, which has switch A, and location B, which has switch B, there is now a connection drawn. So, thus connecting the two views. The DCF connections which are drawn, we can force them on the background or on the foreground. To do this, we can add the options shape data in Visio on our page and add the value, connection lines on background. This then results in our connections to be drawn on the background. If you want them on the foreground, you just change it to foreground. And now they're on the foreground. But what if you want to draw your internal connections on the foreground and your external connections on the background? This can then be done by using the value interface connection lines on background. This then resulting in your internal connections to be shown on the foreground and your external connections to be shown on the background. If you would have the scenario where you have drawn different element shapes and want to draw DCF connections between some of them, but one or more elements you don't want to draw DCF connections to, then you can use the following options. This is our scenario. We have three elements and they all have connections between them. But what if we want to exclude, for instance, switch B or switch C? How would you do that? Well, you go into Visio, you select the shape you want to exclude the DCF connection from, add the shape data options, and then put in the value disable connectivity. This will hence then disable connectivity to this particular element shape. And now we only have a connection between switch A and B visualized in our drawing. If you want to visualize your internal connections, but on the shape you have drawn, you only place the interfaces there for the external connections. But still, the internal connection you want to draw. If that internal connection goes to intermediate interfaces and doesn't directly connect from your interface 1 to interface 2, then by default it will not be drawn. To show this, we have here a shape drawn, and this represents interface 10 and 12. 10 and 12 are not directly connected to each other. Instead, 10 connects to 11 and 11 to 12. Currently, we won't see any internal connection drawn. If we do want to see one, we can do that by adding the options shape data to our element and put in the value internal interface hopping. If we now apply this change and have a look in Visio, we can now see our connection has been drawn. DCF connections can have properties, and these properties can also be visualized in Visio. To do so, the following can be done. We have here our two element shapes, and we draw a shape which will represent then the property value. Don't forget the star inside, and on it add the shape data options with the value connectivity property, followed by a semicolon and then the name of the property you want to visualize. In this case, it's the speed. If we would now apply this, we can see the speed property of this DCF connection is now visualized with the value. The default behavior when clicking on a line is that it will highlight both the line itself and the two interfaces associated with that connection. If you want to modify that to show more information about the connection itself, this can be done by adding the options shape data to the connection and put in the value enable connection overview. When we now click on the line, we see more information about this particular connection. When clicking on another line, you can then see more information about that particular connection. Another way of utilizing the properties on a connection is that we can change the thickness of a line according to the value of a connection. To do so, we can go again into Visio. On the connectivity shape, we add the shape data thickness. And in there, we can then add something as followed. Now I said, I will have a thickness of 4 for condition A and a thickness of 2 for condition B. My connection A is that my connection has a property with the speed equal to 1 gigabit per second. For condition B, it will be that my connection will have a property of speed with a value of 100 megabits per second. When we now apply this and look into DataMiner, we can see that now my 1 gigabit line is thicker than my 100 megabit line. By default, your DCF connections get the color that you gave your connectivity shape. If you want to modify that behavior and instead use the color of the severity of your interface, that can be achieved by the following. You see by default, this one's purple. But now, if on our connectivity shape, we add the shape data options with the value show interface alarm color. By doing this, our connection lines now get the severities of our connection shapes itself. This wraps up our training session. I hope you enjoyed learning about DCF and Visio. We hope to see you again in one of our other online training videos. Thank you for watching, and remember, eventually everything connects.